Welcome to the Pod Bay Door.
This is the Pod Bay Door. Join the crew every week for conversations on society, politics, and entertainment with a little bit of comedy and a whole lot of Las Vegas thrown in. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're glad you joined us. And if you get the chance, subscribe to us and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, check in with us on our YouTube channel at the Pod Bay Door Podcast.
So today I was going to talk about AVN.
Yeah, it's that time of year again, huh?
It is
It's
that
January
time of year,
or
January.
February now. But.
Back at the Hard Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Back at the Hard Rock. Now, we had the AVN how many times?
I think 3 that I was there, and then I left. So,
Okay.
So how about after that? It might have.
No, I think it was gone.
Yeah.
It was gone. We had a couple 3 years of success with that.
Yeah.
I always found that kind of a strange conference to have for the Venetian. Although the Venetian isn't, Adelson is his background is Israeli, and they were very liberal as to what they invited in for conferences back then when you and I were working.
Yeah, I don't think they gave a shit. It was money.
It was money.
Yeah,
it's still money. Oh,
yeah,
it's still
yeah.
money.
Well, they had the AVN. They also had like the porn dealers.
Yes.
Remember that? That was a different
yes,
one.
Yes.
But yeah. So they had those two.
Adult decks.
Yes.
Yes, it was called Adult Decks. It went along with Comdex.
Yeah.
It was like a sister show, but then he sold it all.
And then they had like a Jean-Benet Ramsey type, little girl dance competition at the same time.
Right.
In one ballroom, they had the porn convention.
Yes.
In the other ballroom, directly across from it,
Yes.
they had these little girls dressed up like Swiss nurses, doing
Right.
doing a line dance.
Yes.
And I had these grungy old men come to the desk asking where the convention was at, and I thought, well,
Right.
which one?
Right.
Are they going to stand there and drool over the little girls, or are they going to go to the porn show?
Oh, for sure. The best story I remember, of course, and I think we've covered this on the podcast, but I'll be glad to tell it again. I dealt with a night full of complaints because not only did they have that sort of little toddler pageant thing during one of the AVNs, also during one of the AVNs they had, if you remember, they had the
pool party?
No, cheerleaders.
Oh, yes, that's
National
right.
cheerleader competition.
That's right.
And, unfortunately, a big theme in porn is cheerleaders in locker rooms. And,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, I received so many complaints to deal with, like elevator exposures and all kind of things, because of course the AVN people thought that the cheerleaders were in costume,
Yeah.
not in competition. So it was interesting.
Yeah,
It was interesting.
I had a guest come up to the desk. He was just kind of like staggered,
Right.
and he said, "There's a woman giving a guy a blowjob in the men's room." Oh, yeah. Well, they're probably with the porn show.
Yeah. Or they work here.
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah. Sorry
Either
about
one.
that. Yeah. So,
But I got some numbers for the AVN that shocked me.
all right.
Now we're used to CES, and they boast about 150,000. I think is the last number that they talked about, or they spouted for 2016. I don't know the 2017 numbers yet, but AVN's 2017 numbers. AVN. Do you remember what it means?
Yes. Adult Video Network.
Adult Video News.
News. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
It actually started as a magazine, and now they have the Adult Video News Awards. And Tony Rios, I believe, is still the CEO of AVN, and he's an interesting spokesman, to say the least. 30,000 attendees.
Wow.
Does that seem low or high to you?
Well, I guess
Comparatively,
for the attendees,
I guess.
I guess it seems low.
Yeah.
I guess knowing the industry and how big it is or how popular.
Yeah, 30,000 people all at one time.
Yeah.
Mulling around the Venetian.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
But when you think about it, when you compare it to other shows, like I'm really surprised every year I look at it.
Right.
World of Cement, 100,000
Yes.
people. They said, what the fuck? World of Cement?
Yeah, concrete
100,000?
Concrete Expo. Yeah, yeah. The strange thing about it is that being a commercial photographer, we cover, obviously a lot of events. Concrete Expo, I've covered many, many, many times. I've shot big trucks to just little parties. AVN, I did 1 year, and it was for one client within the AVN, and so I've never worked it that much, but I've attended a couple of times.
They were always my favorite group. Not just, they're porn, but they were just very pleasant to deal with.
They were, and they weren't. Pardon the pun, John. They weren't stiff.
No,
they were very giving as far as tips. They understood what we were doing.
They didn't get pissed off.
No, and they had money. I mean, it's a 8-figure industry, annually. So, but of those 30,000 attendees, and I'll have the link, for everybody on the blog, for getting all these porn statistics. 35 countries represented.
Oh,
I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
And in last year's, of course, was at the Hard Rock. Now we'll see if Mr. Branson, Sir Richard, has the AVN there again this year.
Yeah.
If the sale goes through, but 800 porn stars.
Wow.
So I don't know how they define a star, but 800 stars.
They all seem to be stars.
Yeah.
I remember once the only one I dealt with that was an asshole was some guy came up because they had a pool party,
right?
And he couldn't get past the security guard because he wasn't staying there. He didn't have a room key.
Sure.
I said, well, did you have some kind of a invitation? Did you have an invitation to let you up? He didn't have an invitation. Well, so I had to bring in the assistant manager, and he says, I'm a porn star. Well, apparently he was an asshole, and I guess everybody else thought he was an asshole because he didn't get invited. That was the whole thing. He heard about the party.
Sure. He
didn't have an invitation for it. He probably said, well, we don't want that guy there. I don't know, or he wasn't as big as he thought he was.
That scenario, John, was very common for a non-AVN guest. I mean, we had, for people that are there for two reasons, either vacationing or for business conference, which is essentially a vacation, generally speaking. I found a lot of people, I'll put it above 80%. They were unpleasant. They seemed downtrodden. They were not having fun, which I think started the downward turn of Vegas a little bit. A lot of people still are having fun, but did you find that? I mean, people seemed bitter. I don't know. They were not happy to be there.
No, I noticed that in general that that very often guests that came there were in a bad mood to begin with, and I always thought that was kind of surprising, because I expected, when I got hired and started, people would be in a pretty good mood.
Right.
And I had a cousin who came to visit, and he says as soon as I got on the plane, people were pissing and growling about their seat or about something, and we were late. Yeah, and I've noticed that too, flying in. Now that I live here, flying in from other cities, often on a Friday night, because I've been in meetings or something somewhere for a week and coming in, and I'm coming in with people who are here for the weekend, and they're bitching and moaning. The plane's 10 minutes late. I go, just relax, have a drink on the plane, and chill out, and then we get there, and they'd want to know how much everything costs and piss and growl about this and that.
Right.
Well, hey, I don't set the prices.
Well, no, and we have a very accessible travel area. I mean, we're not LAX, we're not LaGuardia, Kennedy. It's a very small airport, even though we have a brand new, terminal. But people, I don't know, people have become poor travelers, I think, and Vegas is one of those things. However, the weekend travelers seem to be the most fun.
Yeah.
But back to the AVN. I know you and I have had some great times with them. But Tony Rios, again, I mentioned, the CEO of AVN. He gave a great interview, and I found it to be very interesting considering Las Vegas. I get a lot of questions on the directed towards us from the blog and all of our formats regarding porn in Las Vegas. People associate Las Vegas with pornography and prostitution.
Yeah.
Drugs are everywhere, and crime and murder rates and so on and so forth. But the porn and prostitution, and it's really not that prevalent. Not really. Tony Rios mentioned the primary reason. Everyone when Los Angeles was going to pass Prop 60.
Yeah. There was a condom rule?
The condom rule, yes. Well, apparently there was going to be an exodus. I mean, they were going to pack up the wagons and go to Vegas. And Vegas, of course, would be the most obvious place to go because I would say we're the most liberal as it regards that. And the closest, they're not going to go to Colorado. And at the time, they were definitely not going anywhere to the Pacific Northwest. So they were coming here. Well, it failed, much to people's surprise. Prop 60 was soundly defeated. So they didn't come here. And so...
No pun intended.
No, that's right. He'll be here all week, folks. They stayed in Los Angeles, and they really love it based on what Rio said. So there are not really porn producers here. Now, Las Vegas is a giant location for porn production, but they take it all back home to L.A. So we are not the hotbed of porn that you think it is, or prostitution for that matter. We've already talked about that. It's not legal here. You might be able to get an extra little something, from your dancer. With her escort and the boombox that's standing there, but it just doesn't happen. Now, I did find something really, really interesting about what he said. Las Vegas is a hotbed and becoming so for tech. They love to introduce new tech here, one of which is going to be VR porn. They're developing it.
Nice.
Yeah. And apparently they're going to debut the upgraded version of it in the coming AVN. And so Vegas, will have that distinction, which I think is funny. I've tried many VRs. I just can't imagine what VR porn would be like.
Yeah. I would imagine you might already have that in Japan.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
I know they have I've seen some elaborate suits people can wear. And I thought, gee, why don't they just why do they need to go to that extent?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But the last thing he talked about was, and he actually mentioned Vegas again because Vegas apparently, as far as content is concerned, is hugely important in what as far as piracy. Because it's so easy to provide mobile content, of course, the porn industry had to figure out quickly what was happening. Well, at first they were going to, fight it. They were going to, say you're stepping on our toes, and we're going to sue you here, we're going to sue you there. And finally, they said, forget it. And they've actually one of the production content producers in Las Vegas decided, hey, why don't we get together and do this together rather than us throwing lawsuits across each other's bows. And they did. So basically, the AVN was spearheading with Vegas a cooperative effort between amateur content producers, and then they become professional. And it's a sponsorship program, so it's a give and take. I found that to be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, porn. Back, well, like I said, John is quite old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think back in the day, back in the
Deep Throat.
Deep Throat.
Yes.
And
Behind the Green Door.
The Devil and Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Can you imagine what those people would think about today?
Well, there was a really good documentary I saw some years ago on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can stream it. I know I had the discs. They didn't have streaming them, but it's definitely worth looking for.
Right.
And it was about Deep Throat, the movie.
Right.
Because it was at one time the largest. It was the movie of all movies made. It had grossed the most money because it was made for $20,000 and it had made millions.
Right.
And it was mob money, but anyhow, it was interesting to look at the story of that movie because, of course, at that time they didn't have video.
Sure.
You had to go to the movie theater to see it. Some Times Square or San Francisco, we had the Tenderloin, and you had to go to an adult movie house to actually see the movie. But people lined up to see it because they'd heard so much about it, and it was there was that classic joke of, did you know that Richard Nixon saw Deep Throat 6 times?
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure he got it down pat, And
yes.
to understand a joke like that, you really have to know, it's very culturally oriented.
Sure.
And very much in time.
Yeah.
But what was really kind of funny to watching this video is they had interviews with the actors, the porn actors, and even other porn stars at the time. And here they are, old ladies now. they were like 60, 70 years old.
Right.
And look at them, she was an old porn actress
my.
back in the 60s. And, talking about, I said, oh, Jesus, is that...
Right.
Because they were, there was Marilyn Chambers was, I think, in the...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they had interviews with them. It's interesting. They get old too.
I remember, very, very few, but one that was, I think, had a funny name, Christy Canyon. Yeah. Remember Christy Canyon?
Yes.
She was a pretty girl.
Well, they were really clever with their naming of their movie, because often, there was the Michael Douglas movie was out at the time, Romancing the Stone. So they had a porn movie came was Romancing the Bone.
Forrest Hump. And,
And then the gay ones too got in on it. They had Rear Admiral. I thought that one was really clever.
Right, but John, we love statistics talking about on the Pod Bay Door, and here's some that you may not have known: 400,000 websites and counting on as far as porn websites.
Oh, yeah! Wow.
Logged in as officially porn websites, not including like the Tumblrs and the Tinders and everything else.
And again, lamenting now that I'm old.
Yes.
About these
I lamented
kids these
for
days.
You, John.
Yes, thank you. Is that back in my day, for a young teenage boy, to be able to see a patch of pubic hair or a pair of tits, what we had to go through.
That's right.
Can I get that magazine? You're not old enough. Shit. How can I somehow wait for, you start dumpster diving looking for stuff.
Yes.
Here it is now. It's just like, you just type in something else, almost, hey, it's right there.
You don't even have to type in something that's porn related. It'll come up for you.
It'll come up for you like that.
Yeah. Or ask Alexa. She'll pull it right up for you. Did you see the Alexa video with a little kid, and he said, I can't remember what he was actually asking for, but in the little kid speak, he said blah blah blah, and Alexa said, now pulling up porn sites. Oh, it's hysterical, absolutely hysterical.
No, I haven't seen it, but I know sometimes my Siri, there's a glitch, because I'll have my iPad won't even be open.
Yeah,
it'll be in the corner, and I'll say something. I'll say something in Japanese.
Right.
I said to my, I said, Oyasumi, which just means good night.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, from this corner of the room where the iPad has been charging, I hear Siri's voice say, John, your language. So I walk over there and I look at it.
That's fantastic.
And I look at it, and it says, how it gives you a transcript, basically. It prints out what it thinks that he said. And according to what Siri thought I said, Siri, you're a federal bitch.
Nice.
How they got Oyasumi Nasai and thought that, he called me a federal bitch.
Wow. Mine recently, I've threatened to have Alexa on the show, and I think now now we should definitely do it. I'll bring a dot, and we'll have we can plug her in, and we'll see what she does. But my Alexa has decided to start playing music. She'll, something will happen on the television, or I'll say something to my wife, and she will suddenly say, here's a selection of Patsy Cline, and I was like, wow, Patsy Cline, it's amazing.
Maybe it's like Alzheimer's, because sometimes with old people they'll just it'll be something that won't be incoherent or fit the conversation. There's. There was a philosopher at Cal. He's very well known for his name was Grice, and he had these maxims of conversation that he said held for all societies and communities.
Sure.
And one of them was there was the maxim of relevance. So if we're talking about something and all of a sudden you start talking about something that seems completely different, it's just like you don't know how to respond to it because you're not expecting that.
Yeah.
So that would be it. It's just like, what does Patsy Cline have to do with what I was talking to? We're talking about mortgage rates.
Yeah, exactly. I know George Carlin, as far as Alzheimer's, he was looking forward to it in his last concert before he passed. He made reference to loving, being able to, pretend he had it to shirk any responsibility socially. Yeah. And I won't do it justice, and I certainly won't try, but he said that he began having the practice at the end of dinner, like he would have dinner with his family or some social function, and he would ask the host to prepare his horse. And I thought that was fantastic. I plan on doing that. I don't know if it's going to be 50 or 60, but I'm totally doing that. 450 million hits a month looking for porn.
Wow.
450 million a month. I mean, that I always talk about Joe Rogan as the hit king as far as podcasts. All of us would love 450 million.
The 400, what was it, 400,000?
Yes.
Sites?
Yeah.
Now, those are legitimate sites. These aren't like black market porn, kiddie porn.
Again, they're directing it to a site that has been legitimately listed as pornography.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how they derive exactly where the definition is within the coding, but that's what they're saying. 250 billion, that's billion with a B, mobile access hits in 2017 looking for porn, and the way they described it as they looked for it in some part of the wording. They either said pornography or any one of the myriad words that could be like boobs, tits, whatever. Naked, yes.
NAKID, right?
Yes. The American market, $2.84 billion in porn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's big.
Yeah. And back to Vegas. What do you think the percentage for Vegas listing as the revenue within the 2.84 billion?
What percentage?
Yeah, what percentage of that came from Vegas? Based on this website.
18%.
22.
Oh, okay.
22% of this 2.84 billion coming out of Las Vegas.
Wow.
See, we're doing something.
Well, I mentioned before that when I lived in Japan, somebody had made a shrewd comment. It was a Japanese person I knew.
Yeah.
That said whenever they wanted to introduce new technology into Japanese society, they would usually introduce it through something like porn.
Sure.
So when they had the first video players came out, and then they weren't widespread, what the first videos that they marketed were porn. Now you don't have to go to the sleazy theater that smells of bleach.
Yeah.
You can watch it from your own home. So
did you ever, in your experience, John is a true traveler. He's been to places that you cannot imagine. I've seen photographs of Tibet and so on. That's just one of the the lower ones, I think. But in all of your travels, have you ever put a coin into a machine and watched an adult film?
No, actually, I've not done that.
No. Nor have I.
No, I've seen the machines and thought about it, but and as a novelty.
So we're gonna have to do a Las Vegas crawl.
Yes.
We're gonna have to go to a dispensary.
Yep.
And look around, and then followed by placing a quarter into a machine.
Yeah. Well, when I lived in Northern California and I lived in Santa Rosa, they didn't allow the adult bookstores, as they were called. I thought I used to call it the intellectual bookstore because they only have books for adults.
Yeah.
I mean, Moby Dick should be there.
Right.
No pun intended. but they did have one that was actually in the unincorporated area. And it was open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And anytime you drove by it, there were cars in the parking lot. It was just like always were cars there.
Yeah.
And
guys with brown paper bags.
Yes,
yeah.
and they advertised they had the $5 slots or the arcades.
Right.
So you can watch that. So it never occurred to me to go in there and look for that. I looked into videos.
Yeah.
And they had other paraphernalia, let's call it. But
now they had you and I had spoken directly about the Gamblers General Store, which is now morphed into a combination of stores, but it's actually still here in a version of it.
Yeah.
And I remember going there to buy some clay chips. And I saw what had to have been an old porn machine. There was no reel in it anymore. Yeah. But it had a crank. You actually would put a coin and crank it.
Before you cranked yourself.
That's right. You cranked the machine and you did that. Somebody asked me that the other day, just out of the blue. We were talking about, porn, of course. And I said, no, I've never done that because I was... However old I am, I was still on the fringes of the information age that we're in now.
Yeah.
And... God, I can't imagine. I remember that it was a huge deal when I went to college in California, and when you rushed a frat, you had to go in to a porn store and buy something. And that was one of the silly hazing shit that they did. But after all that, I never put a coin into anything looking for that. I don't know why. Now I did go by. Now here's a background on me, John. For a bachelor party, they wanted to decorate, and I went to a store, the Adult Superstore here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and bought a blow up sheep.
A sheep.
We got 3 of them. Yeah, and put a helium in them, and they floated around the party. And they were as anatomically correct as a blow-up sheep could be. Oh, it was really funny. Yeah, to see the sheep floating around the thing. But that's the kind of Las Vegas frat parties that you got.
You know, Japan was always a haven for kinky, sort of fetishy places.
Yeah.
I don't think I never saw a machine, a porn machine like that.
Yeah.
But when I first went there, they had the No Panic Kiseten, as they were called. Kiseten is a coffee shop.
Okay.
So the No Panic Kiseten, and they didn't have one where I lived because I lived out in the country, but they did have them in Tokyo. They would have, for $7 or $10 you get a cup of coffee.
Right.
But that wasn't the feature of the No Panic Kiseten. What it was is you sat at the bar and it was a mirrored tabletop.
Okay.
And the girl wore a short skirt, no underwear.
Okay.
And she stood on the tabletop.
I see.
So she would walk back and forth, and you ordered the coffee. Then she would squat down and give it to you. And as she walked back and forth, serving coffee like that, then you could look at the reflection.
Yes, of course.
That was the feature of the No Panic Kiseten.
Indirect gratification. That's interesting. I mean, the most I've seen here is our live sushi people. He would eat sushi off the girls, and and now you don't see that much anymore. The whole atmosphere today is not great for kissetens and sushi people. Not so much.
Yeah, I think we arranged something like that once, didn't we? At one of the restaurants, I think it was Pinot Brasserie in the back.
Oh yeah,
because the real issue, is the health code violations.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I think we did arrange that, and that it's a huge issue. And of course, there was a lot of covering of the eyes, and
yeah, and there was also something, if I remember, that happened at Delmonico Steakhouse, right around when we opened. It was kind of made the newspaper and everything like that, and it was with that guy. I never understood why he was famous.
Which way?
Robin Leach.
Robin Leach. Oh,
yeah. I'm Robin Leach, and why am I screaming?
He's still big in town.
And he did something where, I don't know, he fondled a woman. I mean, she was at his. She was at his party, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were getting, amorous or doing something at the dinner table, at the table, and that it violated the health code. Or either he's licking something off of her tits or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was on the news and everything like that. And I thought, oh wow, that happened right in the hotel.
Well, that Robin Leach's indiscretions were years, decade before all the Me Too movement. Yeah. So but he's still here. He's still big.
Yeah.
Literally and socially.
Yeah.
But another thing that came here, John, which I have continued to enjoy, back when you and I worked at the Venetian, it was called Show West. Oh. And it was the movie theater convention. Now it's called Cinemacon. Movies being a much larger market now, I think it's broadened its scope. Cinemacon, of course, is for people that don't know, it is a gathering of everybody and anybody involved in the not production, but it's the showing of movies. May it be a popcorn bucket maker all the way up to the movie makers and the real D and the real 3D people. But now, did you ever attend that?
No, I happened to look at it this year. I think it's at Caesars in April. And it's like $1,000.
It is.
To register. Now, one of the topics I saw, one of the presentations, to me it was interesting.
Yeah.
Because it was from movie theater owners or managers.
That's correct. Yes. And
it was that when they were polled, 80% of them thought that they provided outstanding service to the moviegoers. But when they asked the moviegoers, it was only 8%.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, this is really interesting to me. This perceptual mismatch between the client and the agency providing the service. Because I know I see that in education too, where you think, well, that was a great lesson, and as soon as you think, God, that sucked, or like, gee, or I think, boy, that lesson sucked. No, we thought it was great, and it's just trying to get on the same page with how somebody learns or their learning style. Yeah. So I thought, well, that's really interesting that they think from their point of view that they're providing good service. So either there's a different rubric, a different metric, that maybe the person who the the moviegoer didn't like it because maybe they didn't like the movie. And that's not the theater's fault that the movie was shitty. I mean, they show what they have. Now, if it was something else, the room was too hot, it was too cold, or people were texting and, you know, or the popcorn was shitty, or there was the long line at the concessions, that's different. Yeah. So I just think it's interesting to see, how they
well, I think that same litmus test can be applied to podcasting, for example. Yeah. A relatively new medium, sort of. I mean, it's just radio, but I think you're absolutely right. I find it very stimulating to read the data involved and why people like this and why they don't like this, and do they like shorter, do they like longer, do they like older people, younger people, are they tired? I saw Facebook apparently has exploded with gamers, people, guys playing PC video games and mobile games, and I guess there's a hue and cry in Facebook, you need to go back to YouTube where you came from. I think it's such an interesting, problem. Yeah. But back to Cinemacon, can you guess who their Pioneer of the Year is this year at Caesars Las Vegas in April?
Who is it?
Mr. Tom Cruise.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and he'll be here, of course. Yeah. I have met some wonderful people. I did a walk around with Martin Scorsese.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and Jack Black and Gwyneth Paltrow.
Scorsese was at your studio. I remember seeing the picture.
Yes, and a person that I found the most interesting of all of them, although Scorsese is a legend. Yeah. Such a nice man. He didn't mind anything. He talked to anybody about anything. He didn't care. But Ang Lee.
Oh, is that right?
I met Ang Lee, but very, very strange man, and it was so funny because there were so many photo opportunities, and I would ask him, would you like a photo with this person? And we're talking other celebrities and executives, and no, I don't want that at all. And he was so funny, but he was extremely introspective, which I think his films reflect that.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah. But Cinemacon, has now become a platform for announcements. And this year, I think one of the announcements of many is going to come from Avatar. Avatar finally announced their. Did you like Avatar? What did you think of Avatar?
I never saw it. I have it at home. It's funny. I was in grad school.
John wastes his time reading books.
Yeah, that's right. I waste my time reading books. But it came out. I said, I really want to see that. I don't have time.
Right.
And I got the DVD, and I'll see it one of these days.
Yeah. Well, it was a giant film, and of course Cameron is a pioneer in his own right.
Now his other one, Titanic, I probably saw 25 times because I used it in class. Yes. I got sick and tired of it.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, after about twice was enough.
Sure.
It was very well done. The dialogue was pretty bad. Once you hear it several times.
Old Leo, he was just getting started. Now, speaking of Titanic, my wife and I just went to the Titanic exhibit at the Luxor.
Oh, at the Luxor. Yeah.
And I got to tell folks that are listening about Las Vegas, it is outstanding. Now, and it was perfect for me because it wasn't packed. It was nicely presented, and there were very few people. They have what's called, what's called the big piece, which is this giant piece of the ship. But if you get a chance and you want something quiet and you want to, kind of sober up and start, get some rest and walk through something that is just really interesting, and it's something that you like, I highly recommend it.
How much is it now? I know they often charge a premium for
this
stuff.
Oh, shoot. You can Groupon it for I think we were at the $19. Yeah. Well worth it. Great presentation. So it's one of those things that gets skipped because you think it's lame. It's not. It's a wonderful historic sort of tip of the hat. Yeah, it's such a great place. But Avatar coming out 4 in a row, not row actually. 2020. These are all December releases. He loves Christmas. Yeah. 2020, 2021, 2024, and 2025. Wow. Yeah, and he's shooting them concurrently. So
that'll keep him busy for a while.
But apparently there's a big announcement. So coming to Vegas, April, Cinemacon. We'll see what Mr. Cameron's going to do. But John was asking me in the pre-show regarding what people talk about. And what we have a new format, obviously. I hope everybody's enjoying that. A little bit shorter, a little bit more concise. And John and I, talk about as many things at Vegas as we can, plus all the other stuff that's going on. But you know what they asked for?
What did they ask for?
They asked for a return to somewhere.
Oh, Area 52.
Area 52.
Great.
Yeah, so we're going back. With all of the hoopla around Mr. Trump and the Russian memo and the State of the Union, which was literally like an infomercial to me. Now, if you've never seen anything about Trump and watched this, you think we're doing fantastically.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. But with all the political stuff, I found one thing about the Nevada that is very interesting, including Las Vegas. But Nevada is instituted in 1975 by then Dean Heller, Secretary of State. We are the only state in the union that has within its voter registration area a box to check none of these candidates.
Yes. That's right.
And so basically none of the above, but it's actually not none of the above.
Yeah, that's
apparently
kind of
there's a definitional problem with that.
Yeah, that's strange. It's kind of a meta vote.
Yes.
Right? You can vote for no one.
Yes. It was instituted.
And what if no one wins? That's what.
Then they have a special election, and there's a whole hoopla regarding that. It has happened 3 times. It has happened for Secretary of State, but it happened in 1976, right after it was instituted, in 1978, and then again in 1986. The biggest one was for our representation in Congress, but they had a special election, and ultimately on the senatorial one, the person that had the majority votes came in second under nobody. So none of these candidates is strictly for Nevada, strictly for Las Vegas, and I just find that wonderful. I find it a quirky little thing that's, I think, perfect for Nevadan voters. And strangely enough, not only do we have none of these candidates, but we are or have been integral in the last few presidential elections. Yeah. In fact, I believe I saw the statistic that we've only not chosen the president correctly twice. And for decades, if you look at Nevada, that's the winner of the presidential election.
We lost the last one.
Yeah, well, yeah. We lost a lot of stuff in the last one.
Yeah.
So now, do you vote? Do you vote? Yes.
Yeah, usually I do.
Yes.
I mean, there was a time when I lived in Japan that I didn't because I could have gone into the embassy. It was just too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
Washington State, very interesting. Washington State, they don't have precincts. Everything is mail ballot.
Right.
So it makes it very convenient. What I found really interesting, I had read, was that it was not popular with some women because, and I thought, gee, I wonder why is that? And it was because, they would have some overbearing asshole that they were married to who'd want to see how they voted. And, you vote for, and would just take the ballots and open them up because they came in the mail and vote, and then mailing goes, I mailed your ballot in for you. So at least, when you go to the precinct, you wait in line, whatever, you go there and you're in the booth, you're there by yourself, you can always lie. Oh yes, honey, I voted for the guy you wanted me to, and then she didn't,
Yeah.
So it was really convenient having that. But yes, I usually go in and I do like the process.
Yeah.
I often don't like who's running, but that's.
Oh, our local elections are just as derisive as everybody else's. I mean, I go to visit my family in Phoenix, and it's just as silly. Here we just have that little extra thing, the gambling thing. But between the none of these candidates and no state tax, I'm staying for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, next week is our 1-year anniversary for the Pod Bay Door.
I'm only a year old?
You're only a year old, John. Yes.
I feel much older.
I know.
And you too. You look great.
I do. I absolutely do. I have a face for radio. But 1-year anniversary, John and I will be back. We're going to have a couple of guests, I believe, to say hello from past episodes. And we're just going to have a nice conversation about everything about Vegas. And we'll bring back a couple of the favorites. But thank you to everyone who listens. Thank you for all the new listeners. Please let us know of any questions that you have. John and I will be glad to discuss any of those. But John, thank you so much.
Anytime.
All righty. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks to everyone listening and watching. You can catch the Pod Bay Door on the Podbean app or any of your favorite podcast apps, including iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, and Stitcher Radio. You can watch the show on our YouTube channel at the Pod Bay Door Podcast.
Please download, like, and subscribe. Our social connectivity screen is coming up. Check in with us on Facebook, Twitter, and WordPress. The Pod Bay door is closed and talent is out. Hey everybody, thank you very much for tuning into the show. We would love to hear your show suggestions and comments. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, please click to subscribe. You can also connect with us on Facebook using @PBD Podcast, on Twitter using @TPBD Podcast, and on WordPress at thepodbaydoor.wordpress.com.